An opening statement, and I'll remember that this time. How's that? We'll then proceed to the questions, which have been prepared in advance by the chamber. Candidates will have 1 minute to respond to each question. We will rotate who starts. At the moderator's discretion, if a candidate is mentioned by name, they may be given 30 seconds to respond back afterwards. In the spirit of civility, we recommend that candidates focus on their platform and ideas rather than making personal attacks on others. At the end of each round, the candidates will then share their closing statements for 2 minutes. Sound good? Awesome. We'll begin with our opening statements. Representative Horman.
Thank you. I need to pull that closer. Thank you. It is good to be here tonight. Thank you to the Chamber for hosting this. My name is Wendy Horman. I have been serving in the Idaho legislature for 12 years. I'm a mother of 5. Grandmother of 8. I'm married to Briggs, who I think is somewhere in this audience, but I can't see him. Oh, there he is, thank you. For 39 years. And together we own Peak Performance Therapy Services in Ammon. He's a physical therapist. I currently serve as chairman of the House Appropriations Committee, and I serve on the Federalism Committee, and prior to that, I served on the Bonneville School Board for 11 years. And during that time, I was also president of the Idaho School Boards Association. I am chairman of the Idaho School Safety and Security Advisory Board. I started the Fine Arts Mini Experience to bring music and the arts to my school where my children were coming home with their markers and their paints unopened. So started that partnership. I have been named a champion for youth by the Boys and Girls Club of Idaho, excuse me. I'm the founder and chairman of the Idaho Energy and Technology Caucus, which supports the work of the Idaho National Laboratory. And I also serve on Governor Brad Little's Leadership in Nuclear Energy Commission. I have a Bachelor of Arts degree from BYU, Idaho, and also an associate's degree from Dixie State College. I am committed to public education. I ran for office because I care about every child having the opportunity for an excellent education. And I am also a dedicated fiscal conservative, which I think is part of why they put me in charge of the money over there, to make sure that we have limited government that matches the size of our revenues. Thank you.
Bryan.
Thank you. Thank you, Chamber, for having us here today. I think it's great to have candidate forums because when people are informed, they can make better decisions on what they want. Now, we all have different views on how things should be done, and my goal in this campaign is to share my views, and hopefully I'll get enough votes that I can win and represent the good people of Legislative District 32. I've lived in the district for 28 years, and I too have 5 children and 8 grandchildren, and been married for, oh, that's a bad question, 40 years, I think is what it is. And then you gain a lot of experience doing that. I am a lawyer in Idaho Falls. I own businesses, and I have a lot of good business experience. And I will tell you that I'm running for this position for a few reasons that mean a lot to me. One is I want to repeal the grocery sales tax. Idaho is only one of 8 states that taxes groceries. And you shouldn't have to pay tax to eat the food set on your dinner table. I'm also running because I too believe in education. And I support the public education system, the government school system. But I also want to empower parents and families. And that's why I would like to see us follow a system like they have in Florida, where the money follows the child. And finally, I'm also in support of securing our borders and having our, and we can't actually build the borders Idaho, but we can make sure Idaho is not a magnet for people who come here illegally by giving them free health care or free education or free food or driver's licenses. I'm also the Republican National Committee man for the state, and I will tell you I'm the only candidate running among the 3 of us who is a Trump delegate and who will be voting for him for our state in July.
Thank you. Sean.
Good evening. My name is Sean Coletti. This race will hinge on one fundamental question. Do you want your public tax dollars to fund private school tuitions in Boise without accountability? Now, I have spent nearly 100 hours knocking on doors in your neighborhoods, speaking to parents and teachers, and the overwhelming response to that question has been absolutely no. Bonneville County residents want the legislature to uphold its constitutional duty to public schools. They want to keep Bonneville County public tax dollars in Bonneville County public schools and not going to private schools like Bishop Kelly and Boise. My opponents will say that you can have both. You can properly fund public schools and private school tuitions. If history from other states trying this is any guide, that is simply not correct. The Idaho legislature will simply not be able to keep its constitutional mandate to maintain a general, uniform, and thorough system of public, free, common schools if it also has to pay for private school tuition. They won't be able to pay to retain highly qualified public school teachers, or deal with crumbling or overcrowded schools and classrooms, or provide needed resources if an ever-increasing cost of private school tuition is also part of that responsibility. This proposal of my opponents is primarily being pushed by organizations that are not here in Bonneville County. It is not a Bonneville County solution. I am the only candidate on this stage who will not confuse our constitutional obligation to public schools with unsustainable private school funding proposals out of Boise. I will fight to keep Bonneville County public tax dollars in Bonneville County public schools, and I ask for your vote on May 21st.
All right, we'll proceed to questions. And we'll start off again with education, if that's all right. This is a two-part question, but we'll break it into two segments. And Bryan Smith, we'll start with you, if that's okay.
Speak a little more clearly in the microphone.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
This is on local schools. What legislative steps would you support or oppose with regards to public school funding? Read both parts and ask. Okay. Okay. The second part to this question is...
So I'm confused. Did we start with the second part?
I just want to make sure you know that the second part is coming.
Oh, okay. So what's the second part?
Okay. The second part is, what is your position on the state issuing funding support, such as tax credits or vouchers to parents to pay for non-public school education?
Okay, and now I forgot the first part.
You're good. Me too, right? So what legislative steps would you support or oppose with regards to public school funding?
And we
You
get
get
1
a full
minute.
minute to answer that first part.
So you get 1 minute for both of them?
No, we'll divide it into two, but now you know what both questions are.
Okay. So you get a minute for each?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. So let me just tell you my philosophy on this. In Idaho, if you look at the the test scores that our students are getting, in math and reading, they're in the 30s. People are not happy with that. And the reason they're not happy is because it's not good. If you're getting in the 30s, it's a failure. We need to do something better. What we've done is working to a degree, but it's not working nearly as successfully as it could be. The problem with just having a single government school, I don't understand the time here because, okay, but I thought I got 2 minutes for the question. 1 minute, so it's two questions.
Sorry, so you'll each have 1 minute for the first part, and you each have 1 minute for the second part.
Okay, well, I'm just going to answer them together and we'll do that.
That'll work.
So what we need to do is this, not all students are the same. We need to be able to give parents the power for their families and their children. Some kids may do great in a government school. Some kids may do great in a private school. Some kids may do great in a home school. We need to give the parents the option on what to do. And I just disagree with Sean. I understand what the constitutional duty is. We can do all three. And I'm not supported by any group on this issue. This is just an issue that makes sense to me to empower parents and families. My son lives in Florida. That's exactly what they do in Florida, and other states are doing it. Idaho can do it, we should do it, and I trust families and parents far more than I do bureaucrats, and especially the teachers' union.
Sean.
Question one. I support efforts on continuing to look at increasing teacher pay. I would also support looking again at the gap between attendance versus enrollment funding for our schools. I think that there's still issues there. I think that we can also continue to do better on facilities funding, even though the facilities bill that was passed this last session was a great step forward. Second question. I just want to make sure, because I am a little bit confused as well. And going back to my opener, I am opposed to taking public dollars for private schools. The public school system was envisioned by John Adams and Thomas Jefferson as important to the foundation of our country. And the minute that we're going to try and support two school systems instead of one constitutionally mandated school system, I think that we're going to be in trouble, because I don't think that that is something that we're ever going to be able to take back.
Thank you. I have led an effort in Idaho to move to a per-student funding formula since 2015. I chaired the legislative interim committee to get us away from our 30-year-old funding system that's stuck in 1994 and move us to a system that funds based on student needs, a base amount per student plus additional amounts for students that we know need additional resources. We came very close this year with House Bill 718. I worked with Superintendent Critchfield as well as Senator Lent to get us to a student funding structure that's based on students and their needs. I hope next year is the year for that, as we will celebrate its 31st anniversary next year. Regarding public dollars in private education, that already happens in Idaho. The Launch program is for students who attend public, private, and religious schools. The Advanced Opportunities program, which supports our high school students seeking college credits and technical credentials, supports students in public, private, and religious schools. The Opportunity Scholarship is the same. The Empowering Parents Microgrant program is the same. There are existing programs in Idaho that support students in public, private, and religious settings. These existing programs are fully constitutional in Idaho. Is that my 1 minute or my 2 minute? So did I get 2 minutes? That was 30 seconds for my 2 minutes. Okay, thank you, thank you.
It's hard up here.
Yes, we should do these as separate questions. So I do support the existing programs that already pay for students who attend public, private, and religious schools in Idaho, which programs are fully constitutional. This is not a fringe issue in Idaho. A Boise State Public Policy survey said that 49% of respondents of their survey support this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're going to go to taxes. Sean, we'll start with you. 2 common requests from Republican voters are lower taxes and less regulation. If elected, what areas do you see to pursue these 2 goals?
Well, if elected, I believe that we need to make sure that taxes and regulation are low so that Idahoans can thrive. I am in support of efforts by the legislature to wean us off of the dreaded property tax. I think that we need to be creative in the way that we address property tax issues, and that is the #1 tax issue. As far as the issue that Bryan mentioned, as far as grocery taxes, I'm open to consideration of grocery tax repeal. I think that it demands a very careful scrutiny of a number of different questions. We have to make sure that we are making it support the people that need the change the most, and that we're addressing the existing funding and where that would go if we repeal grocery taxes.
Wendy.
Thank you. I am a low tax person. I have voted to repeal refund $3.7 billion of your money back to you in the last 4 years. I supported House Bill 521, which reduced property taxes and also funded schools. I supported, co-sponsored actually both bills, House Bill 292, which reduced property taxes by over $100 million statewide. I also voted to repeal the the grocery tax in 2017, when that is the last time that came before the legislature. So I have a strong record not only of voting to reduce taxes, but to limit spending. As chairman of the Appropriation Committee, this year we took spending from a 12% increase last year, which is not sustainable, down to a 1.7% increase in spending. So it's two sides of the same coin. You've got to reduce taxes, but also limit spending.
Let me just address something Wendy said quickly. The reason they got the tax down to the spending down to 1.7% is because they backfilled it with, there was a lot of federal money that they now have had to make up with for state expenditures. They're now using state money to backfill some of this federal money that they used to have. So yeah, they brought it down. It's only within 1.7%, but it is not, you're still having to spend more. It spent $400 million more this year in state funds. The tax I want to repeal, I don't need to consider it like Sean. The grocery tax has got to go. 42 states don't tax people on their groceries. It's the most regressive tax. You've got people in Fruitland, Idaho that drive all the way to Ontario for a big grocery run because they can save 6% on their taxes. You can't even build a grocery store in Fruitland because everybody wants to go to Ontario. The grocery tax has got to go. Plus, it's just an immoral tax. We're taxing people on their food. The other tax I'd like to see is on the property tax. Once you turn 65 years old, that tax should be frozen. You shouldn't be forced to rent your property from the government in your retirement years.
All right, Wendy, you were mentioned by name. Do you want to take a 30-second response?
I would. Thank you very much. That is not why spending went down. We were religious about making sure that we didn't take one-time federal dollars and use them for ongoing expenses. One of the reasons that we changed the budget process this year to increase transparency was exactly that reason, to make sure that Idahoans were not stuck with a government they bought during a pandemic when the federal government was printing cash in the basement or borrowing it from Japan and then hanging that around our necks moving forward. We needed to make sure the size of government matched the size of our revenue.
Thank you. The next question is on housing, and it's Wendy's turn again. Shortly after the state and nation recovered from COVID, we experienced a significant housing shortage, which made it difficult for new employees to find housing. What role do you believe the state can and should play in helping to provide affordable housing options?
I do not believe it is the role of the government to provide housing, but not Bidenomics. I'm saying that wrong. Anyway, the inflation that has come as a result of Biden's presidency has been disastrous for America and for Idaho. The pandemic helped create this housing crisis. The rate of inflation and the borrowing levels have just been disastrous. And during the pandemic, when everyone was working remotely and suddenly wanted to move to Idaho, it jacked housing prices. Boise was the leading market for the rise of increased housing costs. So the thing we need to do is get government out of the way, keep taxes low, and keep an economy in place so that Idahoans can begin to afford housing again. But that will take a change at the federal level back to policies that support home ownership.
Bryan.
So I oppose all efforts by the state to build affordable housing. If you want housing to be expensive, run down, and dilapidated, it won't take long. Just build a state housing project. What I do think we ought to do is we need to make sure people get to keep more of their own money. One way is by repealing the grocery sales tax. Immediately they would get 6%. It'd be across the board for everybody. We need to also foster an economic system in Idaho. We need to do things that will help businesses come here. I think our corporate tax rate's too high. I also think that the personal income tax rate's too high. If we do those two things, people have more money so they can afford things. But the reason housing is so expensive is just a market and demand situation. And Idaho's not helping. In the last 9 years, our spending in Idaho has gone from about $3.7 billion to almost $14 billion. So despite all the claims that we're holding the line on spending, we're not. And the more the government spends, the more we're going to get inflation.
Sean.
Affordable housing is not, as my friends here agree, I think, is not a state issue. But communities can do better, and from my experience as a mayor, communities can do better with smart planning and zoning laws that will help housing costs to come down and help housing to be built at a better clip than we have seen. So.
Excellent. The next question is on immigration. And Bryan, we'll start with you. What, if anything, should the Idaho legislature do with respect to the large numbers of undocumented persons who have and continue to cross our southern border, some of whom make their way to Idaho and may live, work, and use public resources in our communities?
Yeah, this is one of the 3 things that I'm running on is we can't build the wall from Idaho. That's a federal job. But what we need to make sure is that we're not a magnet for people coming here illegally, because you get all kinds of problems. In California, they now have outbreaks of tuberculosis. We also have other diseases that we haven't seen, such as measles, in a long time. So what we need to do is make sure that Idaho is not a magnet. We can't have sanctuary cities. We can't have free health care. We can't have free education. Senator Jim Guthrie, 2 years ago, many of you don't realize this or don't know about it, but he tried to get a bill passed that people who come to our country illegally could have a driver's license. We cannot encourage people to come to the state of Idaho who enter the state illegally, and if the police or if the state troopers find somebody here illegally, they need to be arrested and deported and sent back from where they came. That's the only way you can maintain law and order, and that's the way you dissuade people from coming to the state when they're in the country illegally.
Sean.
The border and illegal immigration crisis is President Biden's greatest failure and may, in fact, be his downfall. Our laws need to be enforced at the federal level, at the state level. Idaho needs to be fully in support of enforcing federal immigration law. I also support Governor Little's efforts to help secure the border, his efforts to support law enforcement on getting training for the fentanyl crisis, and also on human trafficking efforts. So yes, it is a serious federal and state issue, but we need to be putting all of our efforts toward federal government fixing this issue.
Wendy.
Thank you. Every state is a border state now, and I have supported resolutions calling on the federal government up to and including impeaching President Biden over this issue. We passed one of the strongest fentanyl bills for punishment and trafficking of fentanyl this last session, which I supported. I have also supported funding for the Idaho State Police to go to the border and receive training on how to combat border problems and fentanyl here. I have supported every bill that has come through to punish human trafficking, which is also a consequence of an open border. Every state is a border state now, and we are taking every measure that we can as a state right now to try and limit the symptoms, but a federal change is required. Someone who's going to close the border. That's urgent need.
Bryan.
I already answered.
I'm sorry. Yep, you started off that one. Perfect. All right, we'll go to women's reproductive health. Sean. The 2022 Idaho Republican platform states, quote, "We affirm that abortion is murder from the moment of fertilization. There have been a number of news reports suggesting that the next legislative session will see proposed legislation related to abortion. This is a two-part question, and we will combine it this time. While we do not know what form a bill would take, would you strongly consider a bill that makes it legally clearer and easier for healthcare professionals to perform an abortion when the life or health of a mother is in serious jeopardy? And two, is it your position that in vitro fertilization, where multiple fertilized eggs will be unused, involves murder and should be illegal in Idaho?
I am strongly pro-life. I do not believe in elective abortions. I do not support elective abortions. I would support an amendment to Idaho's criminal abortion law passed by Representative Horman and supported by Mr. Smith to remove criminal liability in pregnancy situations where the woman's health may be seriously impacted, so that a woman and her doctor can make these life-impacting, already incredibly difficult decisions without criminal liability hanging over their heads. And as far as in vitro is concerned, no, it is not abortion. It is another effort to deal with infertility, which my family has experienced, and I support every family who has to go through that experience. It is a hard experience, but it is needed for many, many families.
Wendy.
Thank you. I have a 100% pro-life voting record with Idaho Chooses Life. I'm the only endorsed candidate here by Idaho Chooses Life in this race. Idaho law is clear that abortion is illegal except in the case of rape, incest, or if the life of the mother is in danger. Like Mrs. Golden said, if you actually go read the bill, it says right in there, a physician may use all tools necessary in their good faith medical judgment to save the life of a mother. To my knowledge, no physician has been sued in Idaho for performing an abortion to save the life of the mother. So Bonneville County voters are overwhelmingly pro-life, and I will evaluate any future legislation defining life of the mother on their behalf. An IVF baby in Idaho is protected like any other child if it's in utero. There is a difficult conversation coming about how to handle unimplanted but fertilized eggs. So that conversation is coming, but right now it can't survive outside the uterus. So I do not regard that as a human life when it, oh, excuse me, sorry.
Bryan.
So 24 months ago, I ran for Congress, and in that race, Idaho Chooses Life endorsed me. Now, they've endorsed her in this race. They typically only endorse one person, but they endorsed me 24 months ago. So I have a good, strong pro-life record. Now, here's the problem that we have, is that the statute as it's written, I support it fully. And it says protect the life of the mother. And there are people who want to broaden that to say you can get an abortion to protect the health of a mother. As soon as you go to health, then it can be psychological health, which means I got pregnant, I made a mistake, and I want to get an abortion. I oppose that. So I oppose extending it to the health of a mother. As for the in vitro fertilization, this is one of the things Wendy and I agree on, is that right now if the fertilized egg is implanted, that's considered a life. And it's absolutely true. There's going to be a lot of legal cases, a lot of expert discussion, and a lot of other discussion on what that means up to that point. And that's a developing area that I just don't know that much about, but I'd be willing to learn more about it.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for answering these questions. We'll now proceed to closing statements, and we'll begin with Wendy.
Thank you. Thank you again to the Chamber for hosting this. Appreciate the civility here. I am a conservative Republican. You might have seen a lot of information about me this cycle. I've never experienced it like this before. I have an A rating with the NRA. I am the only endorsed candidate in this race by the NRA, as well as Idaho Chooses Life. I oppose DEI spending, and I make sure there's language in our appropriation bills so that state appropriated funds are not used for those purposes. I am pro-public schools, and I have a 30-year record in this community that proves that. From my time as a volunteer at Hillview Elementary to my time on the school board to my time in the state legislature, I have supported the bills had massive increases in teacher salaries. Teacher salaries are now over $61,000 in the state of Idaho. That's a direct result of bills I have written and sponsored. There hasn't been an appropriation bill for public schools in the last 10 years in Idaho that I haven't helped author. That is also true for career technical education and for our community colleges. So to paint me as someone who is opposed to public schools, I have a 30-year record that defies that unfair and inaccurate accusation. You can go to my website at wendyhorman.com to learn more, or give me a call to reach out to learn more about my candidacy. I'm thankful for the trust you have given me in the last 12 years to represent you in the Idaho legislature. It turns out that when you know how the education money is spent, they want you to be in charge of all of it, which is why I have been honored to be the appropriations chairman. I will continue to work on limited spending and reducing your taxes, and I would appreciate your support next Tuesday. Thank you.
Bryan.
This race is one of the most watched races in the state. Anybody that knows anything about politics in the state knows how this race is being watched. And the reason is, let's just be honest, is we have three very different candidates. And that's why everybody's paying attention to this race. Because we have one candidate who deleted a Twitter account about a week before he decided to run. And there's a real question on his loyalty to the Republican Party. I have another candidate, another opponent, and while she's been in office, the state budget has doubled what they spend. Nobody in this room likely has had their wages double in 9 years. And then there's me. And so the way I've described it is everybody in Bonneville County Legislative District 32 is going to get their choice on what they want for a candidate. Everybody's going to get to pick somebody. Nobody's going to have to settle. Nobody's going to have to hold their nose and vote for somebody they just don't like because they get everything they want. The way I describe it is, and I like Sean. I've known Sean for 20 years. He and I just disagree politically. I like Wendy. She's been to my house. She's a very nice lady. She and I just disagree on spending. And so the way I look at it is you get a choice in this election. You get what I would refer to as, and appropriately, they're both to my left or to your left. You get a Joe Biden Republican, you get a Mitt Romney Republican, or a Donald J. Trump Republican. That's me. I'm the only candidate who will put on his literature, on his website, on any of his stuff that he promotes, that I am pro-Trump. Now, I'll hear someone say, oh, I voted for Trump, but I've looked at all the literature. I'm the only one who says, I support Trump. I'll be there in July, and I will cast my vote for him and make sure he represents the state of Idaho. And I ask for your vote on May 21st.
Sean.
I've been a Republican virtually all my life, but for the past several years, I've served in a nonpartisan role as the mayor of Ammon. When I ran for mayor, I promised a significant focus on basics of infrastructure. Working with others, we have made significant strides in this regard, and to ensure that Ammon is a great place to live now and into the future. We still have work to do. We have led a city with one of the lowest tax levies in the state on a shoestring budget and done so effectively. I am here in your community, speaking with residents, learning, leading on the issues like water, sewer, fiber broadband, fire protection, law enforcement, and taxes. I have been an active participant in improving our community in many ways. I am running for this position because I believe that it needs a person with extensive local government experience, who understands growth issues, who believes in local control and the importance of our public schools, and who communicates well with constituents. I am the only candidate on this stage who has dealt with and really understands the impacts of community growth. I'm the only candidate on this stage who truly believes that government closest to the people is the best government, which means that if Boise doesn't need to act because the matter can be handled locally, then Boise should stay out of it. I am the only candidate on this stage who will fight to keep our public tax dollars in Bonneville County public schools. I will listen to your input and concerns before acting. I have always been and always will be committed to community engagement, and I ask for your vote on May 21st. Thank you.
The Senate seat, Keith Newberry and Senator Kevin Cook. We'll begin with our opening remarks for 2 minutes, followed by a question and answer round with 1-minute responses. And then we'll proceed to our closing remarks for 2 minutes apiece. Sound good? Awesome. Let's begin with Senator Cook for your opening statement.
Thank you. Thank you for being here tonight. My name is Kevin Cook. I have served 2 terms in the Idaho State Senate and running for my 3rd term. I married my sweetheart, Sherry. I met her at Weber State University, where I acquired my computer science degree. We moved to Bonneville County in 1999. We have 4 children. Those 4 children graduated from Idaho Falls High School and went on to receive advanced degrees. We have 5 wonderful grandchildren. I have owned and ran my own successful software consulting business for several years. I am currently employed at the INL. I serve as the chairman of the Senate Commerce and Human Resource Committee, co-chair of the Economic Outlook and Revenue Assessment Committee, co-chair of the Change in Employee Compensation Committee, and I serve on the JFAC, Joint Finance Appropriation Committee, along with 9 other committees that I serve on. I have worked hard to support our fiscal year 2025 budget, which grew a measly 1.7%. That is lower than the inflation rate of 3.5%. During my time in the Senate, I have successfully returned a cumulative total tax relief to Idaho taxpayers of $3.8 billion. That's with a B. And ongoing tax relief year after year of $914 million. I am passionate about education. I have volunteered on my day off at the INL. I have went into our school buildings and I have read with 1st, 3rd, and 8th graders to help them with their reading skills. My dream is to fill every Idaho job with a well-trained, educated, and skilled Idaho student. I am a fiscal conservative Republican that believes in the very lightest touch of the government. And I thank you for being here tonight.
Keith Newberry.
So thank you, Chamber of Commerce, for hosting this. I'm Keith Newberry for Idaho State Senate District 32. My campaign has been about spending. Why? Well, I believe that our republic is under attack. Notice I didn't say democracy, I said republic. And how do you destroy a nation? You do it by welfare, bringing in, addicting people to welfare. You do it by drugs. There's a lot of drugs coming across the southern border, along with drug cartels. You do it by inflation, and the way you do that is by deficit spending. Our federal government the deficit spending is unsustainable. And our wealth, the individual's wealth, is being depleted because of that. So the other way you do it is by invasion, and that's coming across the southern border. So our Senate has participated in these things. The highest Medicaid budget in Idaho history of $4.7 billion. Federal deficit borrowed dollars that have come into the state, these are borrowed dollars, from 2021 to 2024 went from 23% to 43%. It has almost doubled in those years. Amnesty for illegals, that has been a subject here tonight, and it's been a subject in the Idaho State Senate. It was voted on along with driver's licenses. Those bills were supported. A 58% increase in state spending from 2019 to 2024. The legislature is going to tell you they're doing a good job. They're going to tell you that they've done a balanced budget. How do you balance a budget when 43% of it is borrowed money that's come in from the federal government? I don't think you really do. So I actually do not think we have a balanced budget in this state. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. We'll begin with the question for Keith about your support for Idaho National Laboratory. What is your understanding of and support for the INL's many missions and their value to Eastern Idaho, the state of Idaho, and beyond?
The Idaho National Laboratory has been an employer here for many years. I was employed at the Idaho National Laboratory for a while. I support their missions here in this community and then in this state. I don't know what all those are. There's cybersecurity missions. There's nuclear missions with small modular reactors and microreactors and things like that. I think those are a good thing for the nation as well as the state and can lead to some energy independence that we don't currently have.
Kevin.
INL is a powerhouse, not just in Idaho, but in our complete nation and in world. They are a nuclear research leader. They are also a leader in cybersecurity. INL's fiscal 23 economic impact on the state of Idaho was $3.77 billion. That's 11.5% increase from fiscal year 2022. INL Idaho is the 6th largest private and public employer. INL spent $290 million on contractors, subcontractors to do work here at Idaho. For every 100 INL jobs, there's 188 other jobs in different industries that are created because of it. The average salary at the INL is $119,400. But INL just doesn't do things with the adults and with the work. They go into the classrooms, they go into high schools, and they work with them. And in fact, next week, I will be in a 6th grade class in Dora Erickson with INL STEM class, helping our 6th graders get involved with science and math and engineering practices. INL is a game changer for Idaho.
All right, we're going to pivot back to local education since this is a hot topic in this election. This is again a two-part question. What legislative steps would you support or oppose with regards to public school funding? And the second part is, what is your position on the state issuing funding support, such as tax credits or vouchers, to parents to pay for non-public school education? And you'll get 2 minutes to respond to both of those.
Thank you.
Yep.
So the school funds, I am really excited about the launch program. The launch program is a program that's been around for 5 to 6 years, and it has proven that it works. For those who have graduated from the launch program, they have increased their pay by $16,000. That took them from being a social taker to a community contributor. Then we took that and we said, hey, let's extend that to the high schools. Let's see what we can do with the high school level. And so we've done that as well. It's interesting, though, that the launch program fits very nicely and supported by the state GOP platform. Let me just read from that. I quote, "We strongly support professional, technical, and continuing education programs that provide career readiness and college preparation." That's what Launch Program does. And so it is a big booster for our kids here, and it will continue to support the platform. As far as money being used for school choice, I am all about school choice. I believe school choice is important. We have school choice in Idaho. In fact, Idaho is one of the top leading states in the nation for its school choice. We have some really, really exciting things that's going on in Bonneville County. We have the high school, Elevate High School, that's coming online probably next year sometime. Geez, that goes fast. Okay, let's see. I am not for, the problem I have with school choice is the money, taking the money and giving to somebody and having no say on the matter. That would be like me taking $1 million, giving it to a construction company and say, build me a bridge. They turn around, take the money, and I says, wait, let me tell you what kind of bridge I want to build. And they says, no, you can't do that. We will build the bridge that we think is best. And it might be a walking string bridge, or it might be a 4-lane highway, but you have no say. And that's where I'm having a problem with some of these funds that we want to give to school choice at this point. Thank you.
School vouchers and school choice, I've heard a lot about that here in the last several weeks, and the launch program. So one of the things, I've heard is they're worried about accountability, transparency, and where the money goes. So here is I'm going to read you an excerpt. It was published in Idaho Dispatch, and it was a letter to senators from Frank Vandersloot. Over the next several years, and it's about the launch bill, over the next several years, this will amount to several $1 billion. As written, this bill gives far too much power and discretion to the Workforce Development Council, and therefore is ripe for special interest influences, and will most certainly result in an extreme waste of taxpayer dollars. So the Workforce Development Commission is appointed by Governor Little. Many of those folks that are on that commission actually donate directly to Governor Little's campaign. And so we're talking about accountability and transparency and where these dollars are going. That is part of what the launch bill is. On vouchers, I generally support it. I think there are pros and cons, and I think we need to explore those and make sure that we're supporting good education and good schools, and the ability of parents to take their children to other institutions.
Keith, this next question is on urban growth. Idaho's population has grown over the last 5 years. In your opinion, has the Idaho legislature done its part to manage the growth well? And what could we do better?
There has been a lot of growth. I've seen it. Everybody's seen it. Apartment buildings. We're turning farm ground into apartment buildings. And so one of the things I think we could do better and support, and that I would support a resolution, concurrent resolution out of our legislature that encourages our U.S. senators and representatives to pass legislation that would return some of those federal lands to Idaho. 62% of the Idaho land is owned by the federal government. That would open up many things in this state. It would open up industry. It would open up places for building. As far as whether or not the legislature has done a good job, I think that's on a local level. I think the planning at the local levels could be improved.
Okay, thank you. So growth is revenue, and revenue is money. And we had all this money coming in, and you had a lot of people saying, oh, let's go spend the money, let's build something bright and shiny, new programs, new buildings and bridges. You have the other side that says, no, take that money and give every penny back to the taxpayer. It's their money. And so I believe the Idaho legislator threaded that needle perfectly. And let me tell you what we did. We invested money in a new plant and soil research lab for Parma, University of Idaho. We put a new dairy program, all of which is an investment that we believe money will come. Already? Oh, man. Okay. We invested money in the College of Eastern Idaho Future Tech for technology. We invested money in for our bridges and overpasses. Our bridges and overpasses were literally falling down while you were driving on them, and we have appropriated money to fix those, and we have the last third of those to fix this year, and we appropriated money. So as far as that's what we invested, what did we do? What did we do with the money? We accumulated tax relief of last 5 years, $3.8 billion, and ongoing relief year to year is $914 million.
Thank you. Kevin, we'll start with you on taxes. Two common requests from Republican voters are lower taxes and less regulation. If elected, what areas do you see to pursue these two goals?
Oh, well, I think we continue. My track record is tax relief. You will look at, I've read you several facts about, we have, over the last 5 years, we have given you back $3.8 billion. Again, that's with a B. Tax relief from year to year is $914 million. Property tax, you saw a note on your property tax bill this year, money coming back to you. Some of the stuff that we've done with the facilities bill, where we're taking, the state of Idaho is getting involved with building facilities. That will indirectly help you with your property tax and help our school facilities. I am truly a conservative. I want to give the money back to you. But we also need to be able to invest it in the future. That's what government was hired to do. If you read the proper role of government, their idea is we invest and we build this infrastructure that businesses can flourish. And that's what we've done.
Keith.
Repeat the question, please.
Absolutely. On taxes. 2 common requests from Republican voters are lower taxes and less regulation. If elected, what areas do you see to pursue these 2 goals?
So, you know, I'm hearing a lot about tax cuts. I think some of those things are rebates, and that's not really a cut. Now, I would support abolishing the grocery tax in this state. I think grocery tax is a crime. You shouldn't have to be to pay a tax to eat your food. So I think those are a couple of, you know, the grocery tax could be repealed. All of a sudden, I'm stumbling. Please repeat the question.
You're all right. 2 common requests from Republican voters are lower taxes and less regulation. If elected, what areas do you see to pursue these 2 goals?
So Idaho is one of the least regulated states, I think, in the nation. I think we can continue that, and I think that will help with housing and the availability of housing and the ability to build housing so that we can sustain the growth that we have.
Excellent. Keith, we'll start with you. You opened your remarks with some comments on immigration. What, if anything, should the Idaho legislature do with respect to the large numbers of undocumented persons who have and continue to cross our southern border, some of whom make their way to Idaho and may live, work, and use the public resources in our communities?
So I don't think public resources should really be available, right? We shouldn't have welfare for those people. I think that the federal government needs to enforce the laws of the United States. And part of that is enforcing our southern border, which is not happening. Our Senate and House of Representatives here in the state passed concurrent resolutions that talked about immigration reform. I see that as amnesty. So we need to enforce our laws at the southern border. That southern border isn't just bringing across people that are hungry or looking for work. It's bringing across also drug traffickers and militarized cartels as well as terrorists. I would support the ability of our sheriff's department and police to, if there's a traffic infraction or something like that, or someone is here illegally, to deport those people.
Kevin.
Okay, thank you. So immigration, I have supported every bill about trying to push the federal government to live up to the rules and the laws that they have right now. As far as amnesty, the bill that we passed, the Senate concurrent resolution that we passed this session, if you actually read the bill on page 2, and I can't remember the line number, I didn't bring it with me tonight, but it says this is not amnesty. It is not an option. Amnesty is not part of that bill. I do not believe in that. We believe in obeying the laws, and our federal government is not doing that. That Senate concurrent resolution was sent to the federal government asking the President, the House, and the Senate to get on the ball, to set up some laws. We need to be able to, I supported Governor Little, moving our Idaho State police officers down to the southern border and learning how to deal with drug trafficking and human trafficking. Immigration is a problem, and it needs to be dealt with.
All right. We will finish with women's reproductive health. The 2022 Idaho Republican platform states, quote, "We affirm that abortion is murder from the moment of fertilization. There have been a number of news reports suggesting that the next legislative session will see proposed legislation related to abortion. This is a 2-part question. While we do not know what form a bill would take, would you strongly consider a bill that makes it legally clearer and easier for healthcare professionals to perform an abortion when the life or health of a mother is in serious jeopardy? And part 2, is it your position that in vitro fertilization, where multiple fertilized eggs will be unused, involves murder and should be illegal in Idaho?
I am pro-life, absolutely. I believe in the sanctity of human life. Therefore, I oppose elective abortion for personal or social convenience and would counsel all to not submit to, perform, encourage, pay for, or arrange for such abortions. However, I do believe there are possible exceptions to this. When the pregnancy results from rape or incest, or a competent physician determines that the life or health of the mother is in serious jeopardy. As far as the in vitro fertilization, I need more information on it. I don't know. Test tube babes. Thank you, Keith. I don't have enough information, but I think that is certainly coming, and we will certainly be hitting that and need to be educated on it.
Keith.
You know, it's interesting, this question is coming up. You know, we had over 60 million abortions since Roe v. Wade. I think we should all ask for forgiveness for that. I think that's a big deal because most of them, many of them were elective abortions. It was part of birth control. That's a big problem. Now we're talking about women's reproductive health combined with abortion. So, you know, there's already, in Idaho state law, it's already codified about you know, a physician being able to save the life or health of the mother, or the life of the mother. Now, when I think about that, we're talking about saving lives. We're not talking about abortion any longer. We're talking about saving lives. And I think that those physicians should make all efforts to save both those lives. That's what I think. However, you're talking about medical triage where somebody has to make a decision. And we need to ensure that those physicians are not hampered by anything that would impede them from making that decision. On in vitro fertilization, you know, I heard some really good thoughts up here tonight about it's not a viable fetus outside of the uterus. So I think there's some thinking that I have to do on that.
Excellent. We'll finish with our concluding statements. And Keith, if you would go first.
So on Tuesday, we're going to elect some people, right? And so hopefully that we all, you know, are representing our districts and our state here. And so I would appreciate your vote on May 21st. There's been a lot of discussion on, you know, the launch bill and education, for example. You know, the launch bill and the education vouchers, it came up in a committee hearing on the launch bill, actually. It was about capital cronyism. It was about cronyism. And Ron Nate was giving that testimony to the committee, and as he was asked a question on that, and he was removed from that committee hearing. He was escorted back to his seat as he was trying to give an answer. He was escorted back to his seat by an officer. So I think that's an issue when you're talking about those dollars going to an appointed committee by the governor, not our legislators. It's an appointed committee by the governor or commission that many of those folks have given to Governor Little's campaign. And so as we're thinking about these things and we're thinking about transparency and accountability in government, I would encourage all of you to think about that when you go cast your vote next Tuesday. I hope that you will consider me as your candidate for Idaho State Senate, District 32. Thank you.
Kevin.
You know, there are those that believe that I am not a Republican and point out that my own party did a sanction against me, censored me, and that the Democrats are more fiscal responsible than I am. I'd like to quote from the GPO platform states, quote, "We support lower federal, state, and local taxes," end of quote. The Idaho transparency budget, our transportation budget, saved taxpayers $110 million. The local county GOP bosses here joined ranks with the Idaho Freedom Foundation and scored that budget a -5. It was the worst score of any budget that year, this session. Every single Democrat voted with the Bonneville County GOP bosses and the Idaho Freedom Foundation. I, on the other hand, supported our GOP platform and voted to save you money and give money back to you. The GOP platform states, we believe that America owes her continued freedom to the service of military veterans. We reinforce our commitment to providing their needs and honoring them with the highest degree of respect and appreciation. This small GOP Bonneville County insider group, along with the Idaho Freedom Foundation, turned their backs on our veterans and voted against giving our veterans what they needed. I, on the other hand, supported the GOP platform and voted to not only support our veterans, but to fully fund our police officers. The GOP platform states the Idaho Republican Party believes that traditional family values are the foundation of our nation. We believe parental rights are paramount, end of quote. This year we had 5 anti-pornography bills that gave parents the rights and the tools to keep pornography away from their children. We also had a bill that strengthened our anti-human trafficking laws here in Idaho. However, a select few, insider group, the GOP of Bonneville County, joined up with the Idaho Freedom Foundation and fought against these bills. I, on the other hand, supported our GOP platform and voted for parental rights, traditional family values, and saving the innocent Idaho children. Ladies and gentlemen, I am a red fiscal conservative Republican. I do my own homework, I study the issues, I listen to my constituents, but I do not look to a special interest group to tell me how to vote. My record proves it. I am not making promises. You go out and look at my record. Thank you.
Well, thank you everyone for coming tonight. Thank you to our candidates, those who are here at the table and those who have already presented tonight. We encourage you all to go out and vote in next Tuesday's election, and wanted to let you know that this has been live streamed on the EastIdahoNews.com Facebook, on the EastIdahoNews.com YouTube page, and will be rebroadcast on the Facebook